Good morning, everyone. 8 o'clock again. And here we are to drill some fretboard stuff. This episode goes out to a new dojo member who sent me an email. Thank you, Angie, for joining up, saying that one of the more difficult parts of this process is the interval shapes on the guitar. And you know what? You are not alone. You are not alone. So today, I'm pulling up our good friend musictheory.net. To the Fretboard Dojo members, I'm going to put up a bunch of custom links to this website in the Facebook group. So that's for the people that actually donate to me. Of course, I have a very heavy workload until I get these recordings done for my classical guitar book coming out. So I'll get it done when I can. However, this quiz on musictheory.net is really great. We're not going to actually worry about staying in the key of C today. I just want to drill what the shapes are physically speaking. Now, most of the time, I don't do that most of the time. Most of the time, I want you to be aware of what notes you're playing, and we'll also be notating these intervals in the future. But in the interest of being supremely focused on shapes of the fretboard, we're going to leave notation out of it for today. Now, with that being said, tomorrow I'm going to put a lot of emphasis on notation to make up for it. So I'm going to let people trickle in here. Drummer in the park, very cool. You see the lunar eclipse too? It's lovely. So Watcher in the Sky, Watcher of the Sky. I haven't heard of that song. Maybe I'll take a look at it after the live stream here. All right, everybody. So the way this works is you're going to see two red dots on a fretboard diagram, and I'm going to give you guys a couple moments to tell me what interval we have, right? And I will tell you the note names and everything like that, but again, I'm not going to pull up the notation and go that far with it. I just want to get these shapes down, because when we start to really know these shapes, then we can use that to navigate the music that we're reading, and it's a really, really, really helpful thing. So it's by Genesis. Yeah, I'll check that out, Drummer of the Park, actually right after the live stream. I always like to hear what my students are interested in, and perhaps I'll do a little bit of a musical analysis of that coming up on one of the live streams. Okay, so to start, we have the second and fourth fret of the A in the low E strings. What kind of interval does this give us? Go ahead and let us know in the chat below. The whole point of these live streams is that I'm interacting with you guys, and we're working together to all become better guitar players. So if anybody has a good guess, go ahead and put it in the chat. Now, of course, this shape is our perfect fifth shape, right? So play it a couple times, look at it, and understand that you are playing a perfect fifth. Now, I'm going to go ahead and type in my answer here. I forgot my mouse at the office yesterday, which is not a rare occurrence at all, so please be very patient with me navigating my browser, because I have nothing but the annoying trackpad to work with right now. All right, let's move up here. Okay, so between D and G, we have second and fourth frets as well. Now, remember, between all the strings, the shapes are the same except for G and B. We're going to be working more than just adjacent strings today, so keep all of that in mind. Now, this going D to G, this looks like the same shape as last time, which of course is a perfect fifth. Perfect fifth. Bang. Okay, what do we have here? We have second fret of the D and fourth fret of the B. What kind of shape do we have here? It's a pretty wild sounding shape too. Anybody have any guesses as to the notes here and the shape in question? This is an E to a D sharp, giving us a major seventh, right? And one more up would give us our octave shape. Major seventh for that one. Arg. Okay, now, what do we have here? second fret of the B, and third fret of the high E. What do we have here? First off, what are the notes and what is the interval? Well, we have a C sharp to a G, right? And that is a diminished fifth. If you were to move that third fret of the high E up to the fourth fret, you'd have your perfect fifth shape, which we've already seen two of this morning. Oops, sorry. I just said perfect fifth, and then it made me click the button, perfect fifth. So we've got fifth fret of the low E and the fourth fret of the D. What do we have here? What do we have here? First off, what are the notes? And second off, what are we going to call that interval? Now, this one is not adjacent strings. There's a string in between. So these are shapes that we haven't really run into yet. So this is a new one. This is an A to an F sharp, which gives us the shape of a major sixth. A to F sharp, major sixth. Now, if you're confused as to how to quickly tell whether or not you've got a major or a minor interval here, one of the easiest ways to go about it is to check whether or not the interval is in the major scale. So if it's a sixth and it does belong to the major scale, so F sharp belongs to A major, then you got a major sixth. I have a lecture on my channel about key signatures. Good job, drummer in the park. You're getting better at this. I have a lesson on my channel about key signatures that'll tell you all about that. So next we have fifth fret of the B and second fret of the high E. What notes do we have here, as well as what interval are we playing? I'll give you guys just a couple moments. Put your answers down there in the chat. We have E to F sharp, which is our major second. Major second, E to F sharp. All right, first fret of the D and fifth fret of the G. It's a bit of a stretch, isn't it? What do we have here? What are the notes and what is the interval? Now, it's going to be very helpful for you guys to understand that this note that you're finding on the D string, we're not going to call it a D sharp. We're going to call it an E flat. Because that gives us a better interval, right? A D sharp, that's a kind of, D sharp is a weird key to play in. E flat is not a weird key to play in. So we have E flat and C, giving us a major sixth. Major sixth. It would be nice if this exercise allowed me, oops, there it is, allowed me to keep us in the key of C major. However, it doesn't let me do that. So we're gonna be moving outside of the key that we have been working on. So we have another E flat here and an open G. What interval do we have here? This is a major third, E flat to G. And if we did it on the same string, right, E flat to G, remember last time I told you guys a major third is 2 whole steps. And we have 2 whole steps here. Such a pretty sound. All right, major third. Okay, we have first fret of the B and third fret of the high E. This should be a familiar looking shape. We've seen this one a couple times. Your drummer of the park is not a diminished interval, E flat and G. That would be a major third. So sometimes it helps to say, all right, I'm going to play both the notes on the same string and see what that gives you. Okay, so first fret of the B is our note C, and we get G on the high E, giving us a perfect fifth. Maybe later in the lesson, I'm going to show you how to make chords out of these intervals different ways. All right, guys, we have second fret of the E and third fret of the A. What does this give us? Another gnarly sounding dissonant interval. Good job, drummer in the park. for the last question. Now this question we have F sharp and C. This is our diminished fifth, or you can call it a tritone. Again, tritone really means 3 whole steps. So if we have F sharp here, C is up here. We have whole step, whole step, whole step. Tritones are a really interesting interval once you get pretty deep into the music theory. Good job, Drummer of the Park, yet again. So, you know, keep an eye on those. So we have 2nd of the G and 4th of the high E. What 2 notes do we have here? And what is the interval? We have A and G sharp, giving us a major 7th. All right, 1st fret of the B, 5th fret of the high E. What do we have here? And a challenge question, how else could we play this very same interval so that we're not stretching our pinky 1,000 yards long? Well, first off, Drummer in the Park. Yes, we take the lower note to determine what the root of the interval is. We're not technically in a key here, but take that lower note to determine the root of the interval, and then you can kind of think about the key of that root to decide what the interval is. It's a quick way to think about it. And I definitely recommend checking out the key signature lecture I did on my channel. Okay, so first off we have C, 1st fret of the B, and A, 5th fret on the high E, right? And this is a major 6th, this kind of stretchy shape. But you can also grab the 5th fret of the G to make that shape a little easier to play. It's the same notes, right? So let's do major 6th. And again, if you guys are having any trouble keeping up with this stuff, keep coming. This stuff gets very much easier as you go. These live streams are designed to quiz things. And to any of my dojo members, post in the Facebook group or send me an email the type of quizzes that you'd like to do, the types of things you'd like to drill. The group I'm trying to build is all about everybody making each other better. If you guys want to check out dojo membership plans, it requires a monthly donation to me, anywhere between $2 and $25. Doesn't matter to me what you give. But once you sign up for that, you can get access to the Facebook group and start asking questions and all of that. Okay, so we have D sharp to E, minor 2nd. All right, guys, 4th fret of the low E and 5th fret of the D. What does that give us? It's another kind of gnarly sounding interval, right? Give you guys just a couple more moments. Here we have A flat to G. Now, why am I calling that an A flat and not a G sharp? Well, because I want you guys to pick the note that makes sense in terms of keys, right? Nobody's really playing in G sharp major. You might play in G sharp minor, right? And in that case, you would call this 5th fret an F double sharp. So that gets a little confusing. So we're just going to call it A flat for now. G sharp and G is correct, Drummer in the Park. However, I would call that G sharp A flat just to make it a little less confusing in terms of what is the interval. Because we have a major 7th here, whichever way you dice it, and we have to make it has to make theoretical sense. And I think it's a lot easier to understand A flat in G as opposed to G sharp and F double sharp. Okay, what do we have here? 1st fret of the A and 2nd fret of the G. For that lower note, use whichever flat version you figure out. Okay, so we have B flat and A. B flat and A, another major 7th. Major 7th. major seventh. So I have to really let these shapes sink in. Okay, first fret and third fret, A to D. This is our, I mean, you know, anybody that plays punk rock is going to love this shape. Good job, drummer in the park. Okay, what shape do we have here? This is B flat to F, our perfect fifth. Okay, let's keep moving forward. Perfect fifth. This is going to be roughly a 30-minute lesson today, guys, because I start teaching in a couple hours, and I got to take my little dog on a walk before I do that. And I have a long day of teaching ahead of me, so we're going to probably go 15 more minutes on this. Okay, now we have third fret of the A and second fret of the G. What kind of interval shape do we have here? And what are the notes? Well, this is C up to A, major sixth. And major sixths, you know, they're just such a pretty sounding interval. Now, if you're wanting to actually use this stuff for music, you have to figure that, you know, this is an interval that needs to move to another interval, possibly. Either another interval or a chord or something. So learning to patch these together is what we're going to be doing on these live streams. But for now, I really want you to just know the shape, right? So C up to A is going to kind of give you a hint at the A minor key, right? Because it's kind of like your A minor chord in first inversion, right? And if we wanted to throw an E in there, that would give us A minor, right? And if you wanted to use the A minor scale and move it up in sixths, right? So if you want to move this root note up, let's say up to E, for example, right? We would grab our C here, right? So this gives us a cool sound. And then we can right? That's a neat sound, and it's just a very simple kind of string of intervals. Right, and then we can end with a C major chord. That's a all right, guys, let's keep moving. I gotta stop trying to use that cursor and just use the arrow. So that was a major sixth, C up to A. Okay, we have third fret of the A and first fret of the G. This one's gonna sound pretty gnarly, guys. What do we have here? What do we have here? For the high note, use the flat version. Don't use the sharp version. So if C up to A was a major sixth, you're taking that A down a half step, which gives us minor sixth, C to A flat. Right? What if we wanted to do kind of the same idea, but with C minor instead, or A flat major instead of A minor? So we wanted to take this note and move it up. Last time we moved it up to E. This time we'd have to move it up to E flat. We'd still grab that C, right? So we get, right? And that's a nice, pretty sound, and then D and B flat. Okay, guys, let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. I'm always making that mistake. Okay, minor sixth. We have a minor sixth. Drummer in the Park asks, how do you tell the intervals so quickly? I have a short answer for you. I've done this thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of times. I went to school for music. I've analyzed so many scores. I think one of the best ways to learn music theory, in all honesty, is to download as many scores of classical music or whatever music you're into and just go through it. Identify all the intervals that you find in the score, identify all the chords that you find in the score. And you just have to spend many, many, many hours thinking about this stuff. It becomes easier. So drummer of the party, let me ask you a question. What are you good at, right? So we're trying to get better at this, but what can you do that people think, man, how does he do that so quick? And how did you get there, right? And I'm going to guarantee that the answer probably comes down to just doing it a lot, which is why I'm trying to do this live stream every day. We show up and we start identifying this stuff every day so that maybe in about a year, 2 years, 3 years, for me, you know, I've been identifying this stuff for roughly 12 years. It gets a lot easier over time, but you have to have that cumulative amount of time in order to make it easy. So we're going 3rd fret of the G and 4th fret of the B. Finally giving us the perfect 4th shape, right? So that's B flat to E flat. Now remember, perfect 4th on all the strings except G and B are offset by 1. Or sorry, other way around. It's offset on G and B, and they're right on top of each other with the other strings. So we have our perfect 4th there. Okay, we saw this one earlier, guys, but I'm going to call it a different interval this time around. I'm going to call it a different interval. Because last time we called it F sharp and C, right, which gives us a tritone. This time we can call it G flat and C, which also gives us a tritone. So there's 2 versions of tritones. And that's the cool thing about tritones. They're fully symmetrical. So a diminished 5th and an augmented 4th are going to give you the same notes in terms of pitch, but they're not going to give you the same notes in terms of letter names. So if we call this a G flat up to C, that's an augmented 4th, giving us a tritone. But if it was F sharp up to C, right, that's a diminished 5th, also giving us a tritone. And again, tritone means the notes have 3 whole steps in between them. Tritones are very, very, if they're standalone, it's a very ugly interval, but they are probably the most emotionally intense interval if you can sneak them into the music correctly. Many of the most beautiful moments of music are built off of the tritone, just sneaking them up correctly. So we have 3rd fret to 4th fret on the D string, right? That's just a half step. You can call that whatever you want. I would call it, honestly, maybe E sharp to F sharp. It gives us an idea of, you know, a leading tone in the key of F sharp, but you can call it whatever you want. It's a minor 2nd, though. A minor 2nd is just a half step, right? Just a half step. And then here in just a moment, I think I'm going to take you guys to the interval notation quiz so that we might be able to look at that and kind of flip the tables here. So what do we have here? 2nd of the E and D strings. So for that 2nd fret of the low E, use the sharp version of the letter. We have F sharp up to E. Right, so anytime we have 2 notes stacked on each other with a string in the middle, that's a minor 7th shape. Minor 7th. Of course, except when you're doing it between, you know, not G and B, but including the B string, right? So a minor 7th is going to look a little bit different from D string to B string. So for example, if we have an E here, 2nd fret of the D, that would give us 3rd fret of the B for minor 7th, right? So those 2 strings kind of offset all of our patterns. All right, guys, we have 5th fret of the A and 2nd fret of the B. What notes do we have here? And what are we going to call this thing? Guys, just a couple moments. D up to C sharp, major 7th. Right, and it's always very nice when so this is an ugly sounding interval kind of by itself, right? But let's just say we were kind of like, we had an A7 here, and we wanted to create a lot of tension moving into it, D major, and resolve it, right? So that would actually be kind of a, oh, it's just so nice, and then we get that D. So those intervals that sound totally ugly by themselves sometimes are just if you sneak them into the music right, they just sound so pretty, just so pretty. All right, E, open low E, second fret of the D. And you, I'll get again, out of tune. I may be swapping out electric guitars soon. This one's kind of a cheapie. I'm mostly an acoustic player. And maybe I'll get my cello out. It's sitting right over there. I like to play cello too. But soon I'll have to get a new electric guitar. Okay, remember guys, this white thing equals a finger more or less. So this is our octave shape. We can move that octave shape up. It looks a lot like the perfect fifth shape, except there's a string in between. So this is an octave from E, open low E, to second fret of the D, E. Okay, so we have third fret of the A, second fret of the G. We've seen this one so far today already, but you know, for the sake of repetition, can anybody tell me what this interval is down in the chat? Ooh, that's pretty. This is a major sixth shape. As you can see, moving those intervals around using scales, at the end of the day, once you get this stuff figured out, it's not too hard. You can make some pretty cool sound and music with it. Second fret of the G to opening. Now remember, the white thing's a finger, right? So this is our shape. Just putting that finger behind the white thing so you can see if I were to move it up. Right. So this is a perfect fifth from A to E. Right, A to E, perfect fifth shape. And if we were to stay in key, of course, next we have our diminished chord, so that's going to give us a diminished fifth. But then we can, right, this, for those of you that play punk rock, which I doubt there are a lot of those people on this channel, but if you do, these are the types of intervals that you're really going to want to know, because 99% of your music is based off of that if you're doing that kind of rock and roll. So really pay attention to those shapes. Of course, this channel really is not for that kind of music. I want anybody here to be able to get better. However, this channel goes a lot deeper into music than that style really warrants. With that style, all you need to know is some basic scales and then perfect fifth shapes, and then maybe you'll get a solo here and there. But you don't really need to know your stuff backwards and forwards to be into that style of music. Again, this is a channel for those of us that want to be really intellectual, want to dive into classical music, we want to dive into all the popular music that we enjoy and really understand it and be able to write our own, right? That's a really good thing to be able to do. It's not so much for the punk rock crowd out there. Okay, we have second fret of the G and third fret of the B, right? Second and third fret. What do we have here? These are offset, right? These are offset. What does this give us? This is A to D, our perfect fourth. Remember, perfect fourths and major thirds and minor thirds, those are like chord building dream intervals. Also perfect fifths. So fourths, fifths, thirds, and sixths are, I mean, that covers a lot of the intervals. But you can build a hell of a lot of chords using those. And we've only talked about triads so far. We're actually going to get into seventh chords next week and things like that. So stay tuned. Sorry, this guitar, it has some intonation issues. I'm going to have to replace it. And by intonation issues, I mean some of the strings just can't be in tune because maybe the neck's warped. I don't know. I traded a cheaper Fender Stratocaster for this thing, and I prefer this guitar to that. But I'd like to get a nicer Fender Stratocaster. This is A flat to A flat or G sharp to G sharp, whichever you want to call it. But it is an octave. It is in fact an octave. What kind of guitars do you guys have? Let me know down in the chat. That's a big thing to talk about. I don't generally talk about gear a lot on my channel because I'll be honest, it's not my area of expertise. I have a few things that I really like. I have some students that know more about the equipment than I do. I know more about the music and the playing, of course, but I've focused so much on that that the gear is something I haven't really delved into way too deeply here. So, 4th fret of the low E and open D. 4th fret of the low E and open D. This would be G sharp to D, giving us a tritone. And that's the shape. It's a bit of a stretchy shape if you were to pretend that, you know, that white thing's a finger. It's a heck of a stretchy shape, and it would probably be a lot easier just to play that D on the 5th fret, right? Because we have that shape too. Same deal. So that's our tritone. All right, let's do 2 more questions, guys. 2 more questions, and then I have to go walk my dog and do some teaching and record some pieces of music. Okay, B string. We have 3rd fret up to the 5th fret on the same string. This is a whole step, otherwise known as a major 2nd. So let's type that one in. All right, guys. Last question. 5th fret of the A to the 1st fret of the E. What do we have here? We'll call it D to E flat, a minor 2nd. All right, everybody. If you guys have any confusion as to what intervals are and how to make them and all of that, I totally recommend my 1-hour music theory video. You can check it on the channel page, the front page. It's the only video I have with, you know, getting close to 400,000 views. It's pretty easy to spot. Jo has an Epiphone, and Drummer in the Park has a cheap acoustic guitar, which is a Dreadnought. We all start on cheap Dreadnoughts, Mr. Drummer in the Park. I think just about everybody does, and that's the way to do it. Again, I think it's more important to focus on the playing than the gear. You know, eventually, once your technique can handle a nicer guitar, you'll want to go for it. But it's not the last thing that you ever need. And I think one of the best examples is probably Robert Johnson. You know, fingerstyle blues, absolute icon. And the guy was dirt poor. He obviously didn't have a nice guitar. And people are still trying to figure out how he did what he did. And I actually just got the new Robert Johnson transcriptions in the mail. So maybe we'll do some fingerstyle blues lessons once I have a chance to dive into that material. Of course, I haven't really gone into it yet for the big reason that I'm working on these recordings for my classical guitar book. But when those are done, I'm going to branch out and enjoy some other stuff, and probably quite leisurely so. So if anybody has any questions, drop down into the Fretboard Dojo Facebook group. I'm there for you guys. And we're going to be drilling more stuff tomorrow. Again, the format for this is going to tighten up a little bit next week. I have a lot of work on my plate in terms of recording and stuff, so I can't really sit down and make a lot of printouts this week. However, next week that will change. So if you guys have any questions, please send me an email, drop me a line in the Fretboard Dojo Facebook group, and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow morning. This live stream a little bit shorter because I start teaching at 10 a.m. and it's 8:30 right now, and I gotta walk my dog. So without further ado, everybody, happy practice, and maybe tomorrow we'll be writing a piece of music. And in fact, yes, tomorrow we're gonna write a piece of music. All right, guys, have a good one.